They played each other in a 16-game mini-match. You can see it on screen, the 4th of October 2025. It's the world's #1 chess player and GOAT, Magnus Carlsen, and he's playing against Yağız Kaan Erdoğmuş, the greatest 14-year-old chess player of all time. It was an incredible match. I'll bring you the result at the end. We're going to first dive in on these incredible games, each getting steadily better than the last, and this is the very first one here. With the white pieces is Yağız kicking off with the pawn. We get a French defense on the board, and he absolutely rinses Magnus here, crushes him, the most unbelievable sacrifice, and this is just the first game. They get better from here. Let's check this one out. I'll turn off the analysis thing before my computer crashes out. Apologies, don't have the swinging evaluation bar, but we won't have the lag. Let's just enjoy the chess. It all looks slow and steady. Bit of H-pawn action, but nothing crazy. Balanced pawn structure. Magnus still needs to get castled, but otherwise nothing too crazy. But watch this. The rooks start stacking. Magnus creates the old nay stack, not a haystack. Now the rooks double up, and this is the moment where Yağız unleashes a move that would never occur to me in a month of Sundays. Can you guess what he played? It's knight to e4. And of course, it shouldn't be allowed on that square. Pawn takes by Magnus. The second knight occupies the square. And this is the point. When the queen retreats, he lands a check, ruins the castling rights. But then it's like, okay, what's the big deal? Fine, you're on my dark squares. Looks a bit scary, but where's the knockout blow? Where's the kill? Let's get a little bit of evaluation bar. Black is better. And queen c3 is very calmly played, eyeing the unprotected queen, the unprotected rook in the corner, and Magnus goes wrong here. He should defend that queen with the rook, looks out for the d5 ideas, but he plays queen d6, coming away from the attack, keeping an eye on d5, but anyway, we get the smack bang wallop through the centre here, pawn takes, and this reveals the point, it's check. Because after the queen recaptures here, you now take on d5, hit the queen, and also the loose rook in the corner. This is the double problem. Queen takes with check, king goes, you capture here, you've emerged and exchange ahead. Absolutely incredible variation. And we see resigns from Magnus here after 26 moves. This is about to collapse. You could meekly hold on like this, but anyway, then it's crushing. Queen spins around, game over. Let's jump to this one, because now it's Magnus's turn to do some absolute walloping. This is the game where he decides, let's attack with the king. It's supposed to stay home, safe and sound, but Magnus has got other plans. Look at the aggression here from Yağız, love it. Knight c6 from Magnus. Now this one thrusts forward, and after the centre collapses, takes here, ripping open the king. So Magnus recaptures like this, bishop d3, and now you'd like to castle, but then you run into this, rook takes action. King goes, and bang, the pawn's actually pinned. So you can crash through to the king, deliver a checkmate like this. That's why, after bishop d3, Magnus goes for a little bit of king running. And it's not a good move if you find queen g4. Again, the idea is, if you push the pawn somewhere, you crash through, you mate the king very shortly. So after king f7, we see knight f3, queen g4 not found, and Magnus suddenly fights back. Gets the centre, then exchanges some pieces here, calmly brings the queen out, and I love this little tactical shot. If the pawn is taken on d5, not played, you get mated in one down here. So you have to swap the queens. It's how the game goes, but now you know you're in trouble. Playing the endgame goat, although even regardless, this is impressive. Apologies if you can hear my WhatsApp pinging off. Let's crack on with the game here. The rook invades. Normally this sort of thing is terminal. You get so wrapped up that it's game over. But look at this. Magnus wiggles his way out, then achieves c4. As usual, his judgment's spot on. If you take and allow takes, black does stand a bit better. The king is so active. So this was played. Now we get the rook saving the bishop, and after takes here, takes, and pawn d4, suddenly it springs into life, and Magnus just starts doing his thing. 30 seconds up on the clock. They're playing 3 minutes each on chess.com, in case I didn't mention that. He spins round now with the king, and he puts pressure on, and Yağız misses it. Low on time, runs into the tactics. Now he goes like this, and he actually drops an entire rook. Really low, 1.8 seconds. Magnus takes it home. The king is the attacking weapon. Let's jump back here, because now it's Yağız's turn to take down Magnus's Kaan, and this one now features a stunning exchange sacrifice. I mean, this kid, 14 years old and absolutely fearless. We see this move of c5 striking at the centre, takes, the knight develops here, all of these pieces flowing into the game, and would you know it, queen a5, absolute fearless kid, castles into the attack here. What a game we've got here. Knight captures, pawn takes, this one rotating back, and it's allowed queen takes on a2, but he's completely on top of it. He just plays knight b3 calmly, covers a1, king covers b1. What an incredible game. You could actually take that bishop now, go for some craziness, but instead we see this one develop. Not the most precise, but after a6, look at this for a follow-up move. You guessed it, it's rook takes on d7. Incredibly aggressive chess, and you can't actually take it, or else you run into this. King going somewhere, let's say to stay with the knight, and then there's ideas like this, running in to attack this pawn. If the king had gone this way, there were different problems that you start running into. Let's not go too deep, because the rook wasn't captured. We saw a takes on b5 by Magnus, and it opens the eyes of this rook. Now it saves itself, still offers the exchange, but stops one of the attacking pieces, plus then sets up these ideas. So knight a5 to remove a defender, takes, queen check, flushes out the king, then captures the knight with check, king e2, and now the best move for Magnus is taking here. Pawn recaptures, you crash through, or you could even play this fancy b4 move, then you're allowed to go check. That's the idea of it. Gets a bit ninja. Black does stand a bit better here. If pawn pushes, you take, your rook's covered. But after king e2, Magnus didn't find this idea of taking. He went queen b4. Or he did find it, but he rejected it, right? Now rook hd1 doubles. Check, king e1. Now he takes, but this time it's bad, because you've spent time checking the king, but to what avail? The pawn's now running, and after castles, you're running straight into this. Now Magnus has seen this, of course, prepared pawn g6, thinking he's okay with counterplay against the white king, but after pawn d7, you're in a world of pain, because you'd like to bring the rook to cover, step away from the attack, but then you run into queen e5, threatening mate. If the rook was on f8, f6 was playable. The queen holds e6, but not here. So Magnus holds the rook where it is. He checks, king goes, or pawn blocks rather. Now he drops back to cover that running pawn. Queen e5 threatens the mate. f6, of course. Bishop takes now. Lovely little in-between tactic. King takes, queen gobbles up the pawn. And what's so cool and composed about this entire game is even after coming into this endgame now, the attack fizzling, pawn under fire, all Yağız does is play this one, allow the pawn structure to be ruined, understanding that this endgame is completely lost for black. He allows takes here, no worries, you march round. So Magnus didn't do it. He tries his hand at this one, but to no avail. King coming back around here now, incredible chess, b pawn running, both players now queening, but after check, check, and check, we see resigns, because you're forcing now the queens off the board. Magnus didn't want to play this out. Of course, it's lost 3 pawns running. So Yağız takes that one. Run to the next one. Magnus has got the white pieces. Another aggressive Sicilian from Yağız Kaan. Open game. We get ourselves a Najdorf, the sharpest in all of chess. Bishop developing. So many different moves available here. But Magnus goes for a super aggressive continuation here. Pawn g5 kicks that knight back. Queen d2. And after it rotates round, f4. Magnus roaring like a mighty chess lion, castling queenside, going for the kill. Horrible structure, but he doesn't even want that pawn. He wants to thrust for the kill. Watch how he starts manoeuvring now, getting the king to safety, then heading with his own pawns, storming away over here on the king side. Queen kicked, backing up, knight centralising, rook fe8 played, and now a lovely mini little rook lift. Black soon achieves d5, usually fantastic, and sure enough here it is. But after 28 moves of almost flawless play here, the boys banging on the door, finally, after knight f5, Yağız goes a bit wrong in a tricky position that he was defending. Knight e5, best move. Fine, whatever, maybe to head in here. He plays instead bishop e6, and it allows Magnus to just blow this little piggy's house down. With bishop takes on h6, brilliancy. Just destroying the position here, not now taking, but pushing forward like this. And if you were to capture, then you take here, and the king's just got no cover. All of the heavy pieces now involved. You cannot survive this. One sample line, and we'll stop it there. You're attacking for free, basically, not even material down, so there's not much to say. So after g7, we get takes here, best move. Now the queen is made with check, king takes, rook f1 pin and win, and rook e5 keeps clinging on here. It is a good defensive effort. Magnus keeps the queens on the board, but the trouble with defending is you burn stupid amounts of time. Magnus a minute and 20 seconds ahead. He could attack the queen, but instead he makes room for the king. Now sacks the exchange. Beautiful chess. Wins the queen. Now he's got queen and knight against the two rooks and knight, but it's way too tricky. If takes, then takes. So this was played. Magnus now getting the job done. You cannot survive all these checks with no time on the clock. It's a miracle that Yağız isn't blundering anything. Shows how good he is. He's using the knight to defend the towers, but to no avail. In this position here, few more moves. We see resigns. No time on the clock. In fact, time out, lost on time, but a resignable position anyway. That's 2 each. Running now to the 5th and final game I'm going to show you, then bring you the match result here. Magnus playing with white. Yağız has got the black pieces, another Sicilian defence, another Najdorf, so many moves available. Magnus plays this little sideline. He's preparing to thrust the pawns once more, but Yağız fights back. Those bishops crossing swords, great on a chessboard, not advised in church. Now we see castling and it's getting exciting. Andrea spinning those beats. Rook c8. Always play king b1. Knight e5 looks to head in. And after bishop h6, going for the exchange here. Takes, king takes, pawn a3. We now see the queen flying out into the danger zone vicinity. Bishop e2 now from Magnus. Knight fd7. What a battle. Reminiscent of some of the Kasparov classics back in the day. And now what do you play here with black to completely bamboozle the opponent? Very thematic sacrifice. It's rook takes on c3. But the bit that really caught my eye about this game, not sure I've ever seen this, is instead of queen takes, we see knight b3 from Magnus, saying you can take the knight, but then I take your queen. So instead the queen backs up, it was attacked, now takes, the queens leave the board, and it's on black to prove the compensation. Well, there's obviously compensation, but prove it's enough, right? Because Magnus hits the bishop, it backs up all the way to the corner, not ideal. f4 sets up this big pawn wall, and now the knight, after Magnus drops back, is standing in the way of its own bishop. White is better. What can Yağız do here? Magnus lifts off the dangerous diagonal, covers this pawn. Knight d8 rotating, rook e3, covers the central pawn. Knight a4, preparing to crash through. So pawn c4 now covers the square without the support of the rook. So takes, of course, and Magnus blunders in this position. He should play knight d2 because you cover the central pawn on e4, also attack c4, and if black pushes, fine, you rotate back, and now there's no knight c3 check ever on the cards because the pawn stands there. Let's run back because Magnus plays knight d4, such a logical move, but he's blundered. There's a tactical shot. Can you find the move here? Well done if you can see. Bishop takes, whoops, don't have the click ready to go. We'll try that again. Bishop takes on e4, and the point is Magnus didn't take it. If you take, you run into this mighty fork of all the rooks, but of course you take this loose rook. Black is killing it. So after bishop takes on e4, king c1 miserably played by Magnus here. Whoops, king c1, this king c1, now pawn d5, and just like that, the tables have turned. Completely level game. Black even marginally better now with the minor pieces swarming. But what's so impressive about this game, what really caught my eye, is this understanding that you can liquidate to this endgame here and exchange down against the endgame goat, but just understanding that black has way too many pawns. Give up the center here. This is how the game proceeded. Magnus now goes rook b4. You couldn't take the pawn there, by the way, or knight c5 check. Pick up the rook on b3. Therefore, this attack. Now knight c3 played. Check. King going to e5. Pawn dropping over here. But this knight, such a tricky beast, especially when the time is low. Yağız has got half the time Magnus has now. Surely you can't hold this or even win this. Can you imagine? You just don't have the time. But look at him play like an absolute lion. Where did Magnus's time go? Somewhere around here. He spent like 4 seconds, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, too long. Yağız caught him up. This is insane. Rook now attacked, and here Magnus times out, loses. So of those 5 games, Yağız won 3, Magnus 2. I enjoyed them the most, but Magnus won the mini match overall 11-5. So don't want to make it disingenuous, right? He did take it. What a match it was. Hope you enjoyed. Have a look at the video on screen for some more epic chess, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.